is the authority launch. And I see that Sue is a little bit frozen right now. She has her Starlink, but she's back now. I was just talking about the fact that we're doing the authority launch mini masterclass. And so this could run anywhere from hour and a half to 2 hours. But the important thing is that we cover some things that literally, I mean, it took me 7 years to figure this stuff out. And what's so great about teaming up with Susan is that she has a gift that I definitely don't. And that is all the grammar, the composition, the punctuation, all of those things that are just, I mean, my first book that I published as far as, my memoir, um, it went through 12 edits. It was
Ooh.
that bad. And the fact was is that sometimes it takes time to figure out what the process is. So I think you invited your group Entrepreneurs Gone Wild here, right?
I did. Yeah. Looked like we had some people coming. They may be streaming in sooner or later, but oh, somebody's
Well,
here.
that's
But but yeah, we
great.
can we can just get rolling. I'm so glad to have you here, Paul. This is really cool.
Well, thanks. I invited my group as well, Publish, Speak, and Prosper. And you can get there by going to publishspeakandprosper.com. And it's a free group. It's on Facebook. And what's cool about it is I found that there's a lot of people in the publishing, the speaking, and being prosperous entrepreneurs that have really made a difference. And I think it's just like been so great to interact with so many people. So Susan's had some exciting news here lately, like her washing machine story. That was pretty amazing.
It was
So
so
what's it up to?
bizarre.
Like 3 million views now?
Almost. We're at like 2.8 million, which
Oh wow. It just keeps going. It's like the Timex watch, the watch that keeps on ticking. It's the reel that keeps on clicking. So
there
that's
you
pretty
go.
amazing. Yeah.
That's a good rhyme.
It,
I like it.
you bet. You bet. So with everything said and done, I'm excited because Susan has a good group in that you've had a lot of people that are very interested in discovering how to really tap into their creativity and how to like get away from the rat race, the cubicle, and to like open up the vistas of your imagination by getting back to nature. And so, why don't you describe a little bit about, what you've got going on and, about your group, because I think that's such a cool thing.
Yeah. So my hubby and I are actually building a retreat center for entrepreneurs, and it's going to take a minute before that's done. It's about a $2 million project, and we're just going at the speed of cash, right? So I started wondering, well, how else could I serve my people? Like, I love entrepreneurs. I love that we take ownership of a problem we didn't cause. We devote ourselves to a group of people that has that problem, and we pour everything we know how to do into finding a solution. Usually it's a problem we had.
Mhm.
So, and I believe that we get our best ideas outside. Oh, we got an echo. And I wanted to make sure that people were able to get outside more and not have to be like trapped indoors, looking at screens all the time. Like that's not where our best ideas come. They come when we're outside mowing the lawn or taking a walk or stuff like that. And so the whole mission of Entrepreneurs Gone Wild is to help kind of clear the decks and shoo everybody outside to go do that great thinking, the creative thinking. And so I'm always looking at how can I do that? When I first started the group, I kind of thought, well, I guess my job is to nag them. Go outside and play. Get out, get out. And no, they already knew that. So I soon realized, well, that's not it. Wait a second. The thing that's holding them up is a lot of business stuff in most cases. Their families want them outside. It's their business that's like, no, if you step away, the whole thing's going to fall apart. And so I've been bringing in people who can help with various things, whether it's like yesterday, I talked with Michelle Bouchard, and she talked about how to automate a lot of stuff. Like, here's your offer ecosystem and how to put it on autopilot. We've had people in here who are excellent high ticket salespeople. We've had Terry Whitaker came in and she talked about hiring a VA, that type of thing, where it's like, if we can kind of cross off the little things that are keeping you stuck inside, you can get outside more. So I'm thinking the whole thing of having a book is it does a lot of marketing for you. It builds exposure, it gets credibility, it like spreads the word. And, for some people, they all they want to do is write a book. And, their goal is to write great books that change the world. Fantastic. Anthologies are a really cool way to get going on that. So I'm really excited about this idea. I think it would be so fun for us to write a book together. That's why you're here.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, it's something that we just did a little bit of a article together, and Sue interviewed me, which I thought was just such a cool thing. And I told her a little bit about my story, and I'll get into that here in a bit. But the thing is that I had this desire within me to write a book, and it had been there for a long time. And I discovered that a lot of other people have that same desire. In fact, it's pretty amazing. We'll talk about some of that thing. But the real thing I want to invite you into is to kick back, have a cup of coffee, maybe put a pizza in the oven. I don't know, whatever you do. But the important thing is that we discover together the things that help me so much, because right now I'm working on my seventh bestseller. And that's with this project of Entrepreneurs Gone Wild. And we're actually going to be inviting people to come on board with this and discover what anthology books are all about. A lot of people want to write, a memoir, and, people that are ghostwriters like Sue can help you with that. But the important thing is that sometimes it's like the plane getting down the runway. And when you have an anthology book that hits number one bestseller, and then, you launch into the stratosphere, you find that, man, things just begin to happen like you would not believe. So I'm excited to share some things that I have seen happen just because of the doors have opened up, and it's a pretty cool thing because coming from a career in Yellow Pages, where the phone books, you remember those things
I
that
used to sit on that when I was a kid.
Oh, me too. I had a Volkswagen Bug, and I was like 4'11" when I was 16, and my head barely came up above, I could barely see above the steering wheel. So they had like this restriction on my driver's license that had pillow, and pillow was too embarrassing. So I just put a phone book, a big Denver phone book, one of those big thick ones. So
That's
but
great.
being a washed up Yellow Page salesman that was over 60 years old, not old enough to retire, I found that I just was at a point where I was actually living in an abandoned church. And because things had gotten so bad, I wrote a book about it called Death of a Yellow Page Salesman. And it surprised the heck out of us how well that book did. But there's some tricks that I learned along the way, and I actually went to work for my publisher and learned his system, where they've helped over 2,000 people hit bestseller status,
Mm.
and then teamed up with another group that we've actually done 6 books together, and this will be the 7th that all have hit number one bestsellers. So
Wow.
it's been an exciting venture so far.
That's very unusual, right, Paul? I mean, not even just living in an abandoned church. That's very unusual too, but having so many
It
books that have
is.
done so well, that's really unusual.
It was unusual. But the fun thing about it is that I think that when you go through a struggle, and this is one of the keys that I found of really having a book that engages with people, or having a speech or a talk. When you do a TED talk, that's an important thing, is that it all comes down to you know the story that's behind it. There's usually a reason why, and people want to know about that story. I mean, you can cite facts and figures and statistics and, like, death by PowerPoint. I mean, it just, like, here we go again, at nauseum, just stats and statistics and overwhelming with data. But the thing that engages people is stories. I'll tell you that there's over 60 stories in my memoir, A Death of a Yellow Paid Salesman. And there's usually a principle behind every one. And it's something that I learned as a sales trainer working with salespeople and specifically yellow page salespeople is that if I taught a story that had a principle of what, basically you'd remember from the story, it just really resonated and people remembered it and it just seemed to communicate so well.
Yeah, stories are so powerful. I mean, that's the hard part of writing for a lot of people is like, okay, how do I know these facts, I know these figures, I know this point of view, but having a story that all ties it all together is really, really powerful.
Yeah, definitely so. All right. So, with what we're going to do, I want to set the stage that, with engagement, you have the chance to chat in the chat there. If you're on the live with Facebook, then, that's something that can be. So I think we have some statistics. We're going to give you a little statistics now of the level of engagement. So Sue, could you cover that? Oh, you're off there. I think you muted yourself. Yep.
So many tabs.
Oh, I
Yes.
know. Definitely.
All righty. Yeah, these are pretty wild. This is amazing. So this is like if you're on like you've all experienced this. So the best way to get really maximum value from anything that you're doing online, it can be very hard to do because we're so scattered, but no engagement. Like if you're not, if you don't have your camera on, you're multitasking and all this kind of stuff, to try, instead of your attention being like 100% or 90%, it drops way down to like 10 or 20%. I've seen it, I've
Mhm.
done it, I can vouch, can confirm. Whereas if you take notes, like if you're writing or typing notes, that boosts retention to about 30 to 40%, which is kind of cool. If you're a little bit more involved, which is engaging in chat, putting things in like the little chat box and all that, that increases your retention up to 40 to 50%. If you raise your hand in Zoom, ask questions, that improves your retention to 50 to 60%. Now, fully engaged, which is how I like to play, let's do it all in if we're going to do it. That's camera on, you're active participating, all this retention is about 70 to 90%. So that's pretty cool. Now, I'm going to tell you a little disclaimer because Paul is a part-time Bible teacher. We're not having, he might quote scripture. I'm totally good with that. I'm a Christian as well. This is fine. We're doing what we do
Mhm.
here, and this is going to be
And we
great. Yeah,
respect people's beliefs. And so
absolutely.
whatever you believe, that's fine. But I just found that there's some things that really resonate with me as far as the scripture goes. And, I might quote some things, so I don't mean to offend anybody, but at the same point, just I want you to know where I'm coming from. And so if you can appreciate where I come from, I'll appreciate where you come from.
It's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
All right.
And then one thing we ask, if there's families involved or you're listening with your kids around, and if you come on to the actual, video, is that there's no swearing and that we just have respect for others. And as far as comments, let's be positive in that. And we really encourage engagement because the level of engagement makes all the difference. I don't know about you, but I am not an audio learner. That is not me. I'm a kinesthetic learner. I'm a hands-on. I've got to be involved. And so that makes all the difference in the world. And so we're actually running this week and next week a contest where we're going to actually be giving away a chapter in this best-selling book. And it has to do, we're looking for the writers that have something to contribute that's really notable or that's something that they've gone through, or maybe it's just that you're so active in their level of engagement, maybe bringing people to the next session that we're going to do next week. But the thing is that we want to do this together. And the whole thing about it is I try to do this by myself alone, and I'll tell you, it just does not work. If you want to like go to a desert island, and I'm going to talk about this in a bit, we're going to do a little bit of visualization because I'm a big believer in that. I just think it makes all the difference in the world. And so, we'll look at some of the top mistakes that are made, and that you can avoid, which will save you not only a lot of time, but also a lot of money. And that can make a huge difference with that. So,
That's great.
yeah. So let's go ahead and like to just put in the chat for all of those that are in the chat, and whether in the Zoom or in the live, is I just want to ask you if you've thought of writing a book, if it's been kind of, in your mind, and then how long have you thought about writing a book? And there's an interesting statistic that I actually learned from my publisher, and I'll tell you who I published my memoir with, and that was Rob Kosberg of Bestseller Publishing. And he used to be out of Pasadena, California, which he still is, but he moved to Florida to be able to avoid the taxes, I think, and everything going on in California. But the thing is that the New York Times did a study, and it was a nationwide study. I mean, it was thousands and thousands of people, and they asked what percentage of the population wants to write a book. Have you ever heard about the 80-20 rule? Well, that's what it came out. It was like 81% want to write a book. So, what percentage do you think actually end up writing a book? I bet Susan knows this, but
It's going to be really small.
yeah, yeah. You could actually count it on, what do you think? Two hands
Maybe
or
one
what?
hand. I'm thinking one
One
hand. I'm
hand?
going to say, well, maybe like, all right, maybe two. I'm going to say maybe 7% finish it.
Okay. So, of all the books that are published on Amazon, and there's about 1 million books published every year on Amazon, you can actually count it on one finger. It's 1% actually publish. So, to be a published author is really a big deal. But to be a best-selling author, and the best-selling is where like the top 10. And
Mhm.
so that's even a fraction of the 1%. But to be a number one international bestseller is something that's where you outrank, you outsell everybody else in that particular category at that particular time. And so when you figure out this whole process and how you can really dial it in, it can make all the difference in the world.
That's
So,
amazing.
what
That's
are some
amazing.
of the things that you would think? Well, let's see. Do we have anything in the chat at this point?
Yeah, we do. So, oh, Jana had to go, but she said she wrote and published a book in 2018 and she never told anybody about it. So,
Okay.
and then Lori says, yes, I have 2 books in mind and I've written 4 short stories that'll be in a collaborative book being published in 2025. That's awesome, Lori. Wonderful. And let's see. No, I think that's it. Oh, Laverne. Oh, they're right. I knew I'd seen one. Laverne says, I've been thinking about writing a book for about 5 years. That's pretty common,
Okay.
Laverne.
Yeah. We see anywhere from 10 to 20 years sometimes. And you think, what are the things that really hold people back? Because there's so many different things. And you would think that, and the fact that if you have a published work, that's really great. But with the things that hold us back, you work with writers a lot, Sue. What do you think that actually ends up holding people back?
And it's so even writers have, there's writer's block. I mean, it's right in the name, right? So
Mhm.
like people who've done books before, that's a big thing. The biggest thing is though believing that this is actually going to work. Like this is a lot of work to write a whole book, and
Mhm.
what if I do all this work? And I've done it too. You write a book and it just sits there, even if you get it all the way across the line, even if you tell people about it, like unlike Jana who kept hers a secret. There's a
Right,
lot
right.
there. There's a lot of fears.
You know, I think the biggest thing that I struggled with was just knowing what subject and what people wanted. And I thought about it for a long time. I mean, when I was actually staying in this abandoned church, and I had left a men's monastery where I've been for a couple of years. And, my story is in my book. I'll just send you to my book, Death of a Yellow Page Salesman. But the thing was, is when I decided, I didn't want to end. My final chapter was not going to be in the monastery. It's a great place as far as to get quiet, to kind of recover. And I went through just a horrendous divorce, and
Mm,
it took me years to recover from it. But the thing was, is when I was in that abandoned church, I was reading books like Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. And I was saw it, like Napoleon Hill and
mm,
some of these Dale Carnegie and some of the sales type of books that I read when I was in, sales. And I saw the books that really stood the test of time. And they were always kind of like overcoming a big general objection in something that people struggled with.
mm,
And so this is the key I'm going to give you right out of the gate, is that your biggest struggle is going to be your biggest story,
mm,
and your biggest struggle that has an outcome to it. But I'll tell you, part of the reason why it took me 7 years to write my book is because I wasn't through my struggle.
mm,
And actually, writing my book helped me through the struggle
mm.
because I was kind of documenting what was going on. And I'll tell you, I probably wrote that book 4 times.
Wow.
And when I went back through looking at all the different editions and stuff, is that I got very proficient at just writing. And so, writer's block that you're talking about, Sue, is so common. And I'll share a tip too, that my sister, who's written 6 best-selling books herself, and she actually is like the president of the California Writers Guild. And she taught me that if you're sitting at the computer and you're typing, and it really sometimes promotes writer's block, because sometimes the mind is just not flowing like you can type.
Mm,
So she said, just take out a pen and start handwriting, and you'll find that things start to come to you, and as you're writing, it just kind of flows out. And I'll tell you, I was amazed at how it works. And
mm.
then there's some other techniques that I'll share with you, that I use with coaching my clients that have really made a difference for them. So, some of the top mistakes that I found that are really important is, first of all, knowing your audience.
Mm,
And that's a tough thing sometimes because you just don't know sometimes. But you have an idea of what your background is and what you have experience in. And so a lot of the people that Sue and I work with are kind of at the retired state, or they're kind of at midlife,
mm,
and they've gone through some things, they've learned some things, you have some experience, you have something that you want to share with other people. And so there's ways to tap in to know who your audience is. It just doesn't have to be guesswork. And I'll tell you, with AI these days, you can discover some things with just the right prompts and asking you questions that can make all the difference. Another thing is knowing what subject really people are looking for. There's software that will tell you what people are searching for on Amazon. And that has been huge, because if you know that there's all these people that are looking for like ways to know how to barbecue, and you have a book that talks about all the cool tricks that Paul has about barbecuing, then that can make all the difference in the world. But also, you typically don't make a lot of money on the book sales. I mean, if you make like 30, 40 cents, sometimes, maybe a dollar or two, that's about it. But what you have as far as an offer on the back end, I
mm,
mean, it can make all the difference in the world. So the thing is that what's wanted, what sells, what the right subject is. I mean, I've seen people, publishers that will have a class for, like $1,000 that just talks about writing the right book,
mm.
and they don't even help you do it. And the thing is that, if you invest all this money and, you don't have the right book, that can make a difference. in the thing. So I'm just wondering if there's any questions that you have before we really dive into the first part and we get
Yeah,
into,
there's
what
a
we
couple
think the biggest.
comments. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So Tiffany says midlife crisis on the way. So perfect time to write a book, right? And Sarah Merritt was asking, is this self-publishing or an agent finds you kind of publisher? Is there a difference when you're writing like different types of publishers? Are there
Mhm.
differences?
That's a good question, and we can actually hold that down. I'm going to write that down because
Okay.
the traditional way of publishing is, a lot of times people think, oh, I wanted the big advance, the six-figure advance, and then to be able to do that. So
Who doesn't?
traditional versus self-publishing.
Yeah. So we'll
And
get
then
to
why
that
don't you
for
read
sure.
another? And I'm going to grab a glass of water. I'll be right back.
Okay. Sarah, that's a great question. I know I've done it both ways, and I have some strong opinions on this, but it's going to be very interesting to see what Paul has to say. I'm not quite sure what his answer will be, but for sure we'll find out when he's hydrated.
Well, let me ask you this, is that who is one of the most famous book writers of all time? He sold 60 million copies of
Oh
his
my.
books.
Oh
Do you know how he
man.
started out? He started out in traditional publishing with a traditional publisher.
Who is
And
this?
his wife contacted Steve Harrison, and he's another guy that helps publish book. He's actually a good reference. He's got a good system too. I've actually
Mhm,
studied it. I compared my system to his, and it's a good system. It's good to follow a system because that can make all the difference in the world.
mhm,
But Steve Harrison helped Jack Canfield's wife because Jack Canfield came, his wife came to Steve and said, Steve, we have 3,000 books in our garage and we don't know what to do with them.
mm,
And so, what happens a lot of times when you sign up with a traditional publisher is they stack the book, so to speak, and the fact that you've got to buy, and if it's like $7 or $8 a copy and you have 3,000 books, I mean, you're talking like 20 grand.
mhm,
And the thing is that how do you sell those books? Because one of the things I didn't tell you about the 81% that want to publish a book and only 1% do is the average number based upon Amazon, the number that actually sell books in the lifetime of that book
mhm,
is between 275 and 300 books
mm.
are sold in the lifetime of that book. And you think, well, why is that? Well, you've asked your friends, your family, everybody at work, everybody at church, to the point where after the third or fourth time you've asked them, they're kind of like a little tired of hearing about it. But the thing is that there's a way to be able to tap into the system, like Sue did with her washing machine, to where she has like 3 million views. When I published my memoir, I tapped in to a tsunami of 8 million views. How did I do that? That's something that we're going to share,
Mm.
later on. So I want you to stay engaged. I love the questions. Traditional publishers look for numbers. After my two books came out, I had a following of about 2,000. After about 6, 7 months, it grew to about 30,000 followers.
Wow.
And that's through all my combined media. And the thing is that if you have a following of like 200,000, 300,000, a million, then the traditional publishers are going to have these book advances. They want to, jump on, so to speak, your, following and everything. So it really comes down to numbers with that. But I'm telling you that with self-publishing, there's a system you can do for very affordable. I mean, I spent like 5 figures, and we're talking like mid 5 figures to publish, my first memoir. And the thing is that when you do an anthology, it makes a difference because you could actually split the cost and do crowdfunding with 15 or 20 authors where you all split the cost. And it's just amazing how
Mhm.
you can do that. So
That's really smart.
I don't know if you have anything else to add on that, Sue, about the traditional publishers versus self or not.
Yeah, actually, I just have a little example. So in the writing world, Bob Bly, he does like, he's a marketing writer. He's been doing this. He's got, I don't know, probably 100 books at this point. And he decided, and he's done self-publishing for all of them. He went to a regular publisher and they're like, "Who are you? We don't know you." And he's like, "I have," like, he's huge. And it was like, even though he
Mhm.
had a big following, they were like, "Nah, we don't know." And then I wrote one for traditional publishing. It's funny that you mentioned Volkswagens. Hubby and I used to own a Volkswagen restoration company, like custom Volkswagens. And so a big publisher in the automotive world found our shop and they asked, kind of begged actually, they wouldn't leave us alone. "Please write books." So I wrote 2 books for them, and they have this huge publishing arm. Like, you would think that they could get this done. It's just like puddling along. I'm like, this is nuts. So it's a very bizarre world in that publishing area.
That's amazing. I used to drive a Volkswagen Bug myself, and I had two brothers and two sisters that were older. And so by the time I got the family Bug, it had 6 different colors. I mean, every fender was different because when one of us would bash in the fender, dad would just go down to the junkyard and replace it. So it was originally light green and it ended up with like a red hood and like blue fenders, and it was the most hideous looking thing. I was embarrassed, as the youngest of 5 to drive that to school. But it ended up that when I took it to college, I had that thing bored out, put headers on it. It had
Mhm.
the sunroof in the top where I could actually stand up and drive and
Yeah.
do egg fights. It was amazing. It was the best thing. And I just loved my old, and it was Wooster in Salina, Kansas that did my work. I don't know if you know him, but he was like a famous,
Amazing.
Volkswagen Beetle guy.
I bet hubby does. He became
Yeah.
famous as well. The books helped. Actually, they did
Uh,
help. We ended up with I think it was a 3-year wait list. People had to put down $1,000 non-refundable for a
Oh man.
restoration. These are really high end, so 100,000 plus. We had clients doing 250,000. And a lot of this came from our books. They found us like that. So yeah, we never, barely made anything on royalties, but where it really paid off, I called it the mother of all business cards.
You bet. You bet. So I just want to do something kind of fun right now, is where I'm actually going to give a prize to the person that has the right answer for this. Is, what do you think is the biggest problem with writing a best-selling book? And I'm going to give you some of the answers. And like the actual marketing and or the writing of it, what are those two? What do you think it could be? Or is it the tech, as far as setting everything up and doing like the formatting, if you're doing your own book? Because there's a lot of companies out there that will publish your manuscript to Amazon for like 199 $299. And so, but the thing is that a lot of times, are they setting up the Kindle Direct Press, the KDP on your on for you, or are they doing it for them? Are they going to take the royalties or not? Um, how about the layout structure and the actual, what makes for a good best-selling book? And but the number one biggest problem is something that's kind of involved in all of that.
All
So
right.
I don't know if we have any answers,
We
but
do. Lori,
the actual gift, you can go to one of to paulsbestsellers.com, and you can look at all of my 6 books that are on there that are all #1 bestsellers. And you can pick one of those books, and I'll actually, I'll have to get some reprints of some of those, but you can pick one of those books and I'll send it to you.
all
So
right.
let's go ahead and just take that in place for a bit. I don't know if we have any
We do.
people that are
Yeah,
looking
Lori,
at that. So
Lori has a guess. She says, "Is it marketing?"
that's a good guess. Okay, what else?
Who else wants to throw in a guess there?
Well, we can leave the question
We'll leave
open
it. All
for
right.
that too. And we'll kind of circle back to this question because to me, it's like the biggest hurdle that you have to overcome. And, the one thing is that marketing is super important. And, the writing is super important. And a lot of it's pretty important. So, there's something that, to be able to overcome, you have to have a reason why you want to do this. And I can tell you that the dream of being a best-selling author is something that maybe you've had it, or maybe you've kind of thought maybe it's possible. But imagine living your dream life where you're a best-selling author. You've experienced the freedom to write whatever you love, and you're gaining authority, influence, and wealth in the process. And you can have it all: your dream career, the recognition, the impact, the financial rewards that all come with it. And the doors that open from that, I'll tell you, they're amazing. I mean, one of the dreams I had is to be able to travel across the nation. And I had an RV at the time. I mean, it was an old one. I bought it for like 8,000. I was actually living in it. That was before the monastery. And so but the thing is, wintertime came and it was super cold in Idaho where I was living at the time.
Ooh,
But the thing is that now we have a brand new RV. We travel across the country. I've gone on 8 book tours. And the thing is that when you have this dream and you take action towards that dream, then things can happen. So, Susan,
that's
what
so
are some
cool.
of the things that you would like to talk
And
about as far
so
as
I
exploring
want
this
to know,
dream?
like, what does it take to achieve that? Like, that sounds pretty amazing.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that it takes is people like you, because you have the gift of being able to craft, compelling content. And that's really is a lot of times we'll have like a story and that, we're kind of not sure
Mm.
about things, but when you tell the story and you have somebody that's experienced like you as a ghostwriter, and the thing is that you're a very good ghostwriter to work with. My last submission that I had, I don't know, what was it, about a month ago,
Mhm.
Susan?
Not bad.
And I had 2 books that launched in the same week. And what we did is we had a book called The Author's Playbook that we released it on August 29th. It went number one international bestseller in the first few hours. And part of it was this power of the anthology that we'll talk here in a bit. And I'll just tell you is that when you have your own book and you have your following, your email list, is you can contact, maybe several hundred or several thousand people, but it's not the same as if you have like 18 or 20 authors that are all going in together all at the same time. And so when this book released, back on August 29th, I mean, it went number one international, I mean, immediately within like 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. And so they decided to release the next book that we hadn't even written yet. Nobody had written. And this one was called The Entrepreneur's Playbook. And so it ended up going number 3 in pre sales. And so when I looked at it, they had a screenshot, and I actually have a copy of that, but it had Author's Playbook as number 1, and number 3 was The Entrepreneur's Playbook. But guess what was number 2 in the second position?
I already know. I'm going to leave it open there. Let's see what
Go
everybody
ahead.
says.
You can tell me because you helped me with the submission I did.
Alex Hermosi is
Yeah, his
100,
$100 million
100.
offers.
Yeah.
Now, you may not know who Alex Hormozy is, but he's this guy that kind of he really dialed in the process to make these gyms, where you go and work out, to be really like multi-million dollar like gold mines for people. And so I think he got into kind of like buying and selling it, optimizing them, designing systems, because he's very good about designing what he's called $100 million system, or his $100 million offer system. And so when I saw his book was number two, and I we had a book that was number one and number three, and we hadn't even written the number three book yet, I couldn't sleep that night. I mean, I went to bed around 10 o'clock, and I stayed in bed. I mean, thinking about, because I was thinking, what can I write? And it was due like in a couple days. And I am like a super big time procrastinator. I am. I'll confess I'm one of those guys. And the thing is I put a lot of thought into like coming up with something that's a creative idea that's kind of like out of the box, like something that nobody's like done. And so I was thinking it would be so cool is if I could write a chapter in this book called Entrepreneur's Playbook. And I'm thinking, what have I really done as an entrepreneur? I mean, I've been at this for a couple, 2, 3 years now, and things have really happened. But where have I really, made the mark? And one of the things that I've done is after I published about my fourth book, I went ahead and founded a group called Publish, Speak, and Prosper. And my idea with that group is to marry the publishing and the speaking industries together so that you're more of a prosperous entrepreneur. So the formula is publish plus speaking equals prosperity. So publish, speak, and prosper. And so what I did is I actually did some creative things in AI where I asked AI to take my last book submission that I did that was called Author's Playbook, and I described my system of the publish, speak, and prosper, of where you can discover and also to develop your voice. And if you get that book, you'll see that there's like this one little nugget I have in that book. And it's just a chapter, but the voice is an acronym of VOICE. And this is where your vision is what will enable you to have your originality, your inspiration, your creativity that you actually embody. So that's where we get the acronym of VOICE. And to
Like
me,
that.
to develop your voice and to discover it first and then develop it, it was really cool. So what I did is I asked ChatGPT to go in and do a comparison between Alex Hormozzi's $100 million offer system and then my system. And I put the entire chapter in there. And so this is one of the things I teach my clients of how to use AI to really come up with some great ideas for really compelling content. Now, can you actually have it right? Your chapter, I would not suggest it, because I'll tell you, Amazon can tell what's plagiarized and what's not. And so when I actually got done with it, it was like so over the top, like kind of out of the park idea, that I actually put it by Sue. And I said, Sue, what do you think of this chapter? And so what was your response, Sue?
I loved it. I loved it. But it had a little tweaking that it needed.
It did. It needed, the punctuation is something I struggle with. All those dang commas,
I know commas are the bear.
they are. I just don't know all the rules, but that's where you have somebody like Sue that really can do that. So, um, yeah. And so, you know, with that chapter is I just felt really good about it. And one of the things that happened is 6 months before I published my memoir, I jumped onto an anthology book, and it was about coaching. And I had this idea of that I wanted to share the system that I'd come up with to train my yellow page salespeople.
Mhm.
And it was a system that I learned from a Top Gun fighter pilot instructor. And he actually came in and instructed us about effective communication. And this was something that it was about midway, I was about 20 years into my sales career. And when I took that training and then I implemented it, It's basically how to close a high ticket sale in a one call close.
Mm,
And as a yellow page salesperson, we'd see sometimes like 2,500 clients a year, and we'd see them once a year. And so
mm,
when we were in front of them for that half an hour, that was their time. And so if they wanted to think about it, we'd say we'd be back next year. It was that critical that we'd have to see like 20 people a day, and we'd
mm,
have to turn in at least 10 contracts a day.
mm.
And so to be able to know how to close a high ticket sale in a one call close is I put this in this chapter called Top Gun Coaching. And I was trying to think, how can I do this? And so I used a lot of the quotes from Top Gun. And the new sequel had just come out like a few weeks before. And so I had like all these quotes, that they use in the movie, like with, what does Goose say, when they're going down, this is bad. This is, it was just a lot of fun things to do. And so it was my first submission that I'd ever written anything that got published. And so the book came out. It was #1 international bestseller in like, United States and like 3 other countries. And the actual lead author in the project came back and he said, Paul, he goes, that Top Gun coaching is my favorite chapter in the book. And I'll tell you, that was like even more powerful to me than having like #1 bestseller on the book. And so when it came down to actually publishing my book, is I was able to put, like best-selling author right on the front cover. And I'll tell you, it made a huge, huge difference with that.
That's
So I
amazing.
imagine, how many of you would like to see, the dream of having your book on the bestseller list? And okay, Sue's got her hand up. And so let's take a moment to visualize this, okay? Because, I've been on like I think 8 book tours now. And every time I launch a book, I go out on tour. And one of the things is I just like to promote the book when it's launching. And so when Author's Playbook came out here back last, what was it, June, is we were actually out in Montana and Idaho. And we wanted to be able to be in a nice resort location and do videos and talk about the launch that it's coming out tomorrow and it's coming out today, and then talk about the results because they usually always do well when it's a collaboration with a bunch of anthologies. And so it was so much fun to do that because the thing is that you're in momentum. And there was one time that I woke up and I was on that tour and I was having coffee and I was watching the sun come up.
Mm.
And I just had this sense that I thought, I think this is going to be the best day of my life. And,
Oh, what a great
it
thing.
was just like, and I had one of my followers come and said, Paul, your life is palpable. And I had to actually look it up to make sure I knew what it meant. And it's like having the evidence of something that not you haven't necessarily arrived,
Mm,
but you're like on track to hit it. And so it's one of those things that when you have that confidence, when you have that assurance, when you're in a system that works, it's just the most gratifying, and it's really an incredible thing, I'll have to tell you. So just I want you to just you don't have to close your eyes because sometimes I think keeping them open is good. But imagine yourself being in a Barnes and Noble where you have like dozens of people that want to talk to you, that maybe you've read a selection, a few paragraphs. I know my first book signing, I wasn't quite sure what to do, so I read my favorite chapter in my book of Death of a Yellow Page Salesman, and I talk about where I met my wife. And it was a part in the book that was kind of like at the very conclusion where it's like the pinnacle, where it's like everything changed after I met her because I was searching for somebody that would really support me and that would not be critical, but would actually encourage me. And my wife has been blind since birth. and she has this gift of communication that's just amazing.
Mm.
And so the chapter that I wrote about her, and I actually read this in this book signing, it's called "Where the Blind Helps the Lost to See."
Mm.
And just talking about it, I start crying. It's just so powerful. And so it's just, I want you to know that when you get done with like a book signing, or you do a reading, and people come up to you, and some maybe have already read the book, and they say, "Oh, this has been so important to me. I just love the way that you handled this." And I've had several say, Paul, your book changed my life."
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah. And
What a thing
it's
to
just a
hear.
powerful things. So I just want to take you out of the elements of you thinking that, oh, that's great for Paul, because he's done this, and he's got 6 number 1 bestsellers. And the thing is that I graduated from high school, and I actually flunked out of English grammar composition. I had a 50 percentile in English grammar and composition when I graduated from high school as a senior. 50 out of 100. I mean, not 50 out of 60 or 50 out of 70, 50 out of 100. And I'll tell you, it was just something that I struggled with. But the thing is that I was really, really good at telling stories. And I actually discovered my voice through podcasting.
Hmm.
And it's simply because whenever I got down and I would start typing, is I would freeze up. But when I go on and actually record my voice and tell a story like I did to all these salespeople, every morning I tell a story and teach something,
Mm.
is it just started flowing. And I took those stories and actually transcribed them, and actually had an editor kind of like polish them up. And the thing was, is that those stories were gold. But my first podcast that I started, there was one listener, and it was just me. I did not put it out there. I did not make it public. But the thing is after I started doing like 15, 20, 25 podcasts, and they were just basically, I do like a 5-minute podcast of telling a story. And so, of all these stories I have in my memoir, of the death of a yellow page salesman, is that they're actually podcasts that I took. And so, I just encourage you that if you're trying to find your voice, there's nothing better than podcasting. And I know, Sue, you've had that experience as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there's just something, even as a writer, it's like sitting down to do your own, there's stuff that happens, but if you're just can speak it, then all of a sudden it just comes out, and it's not going to be polished. It's not going to be slick, but it's going to be out, and then you can work with it.
Right. And so then other things that can happen, once you have your bestseller, is that I was actually contacted by a professor from a small college in Kansas. And it just so happens it's only 50 miles from where I grew up. It was down in Hutchinson, Kansas, and I grew up in Salina, Kansas. And she was the professor of the entrepreneur class. And she said, "Paul, would it be okay if I used your book as our course curriculum?" And she said, I'm actually thinking that you could actually participate maybe by Zoom, or where we could ask you questions, because there's so many stories in there that are so great about marketing. But they're also, we're a Christian college, and we try to emphasize, to have, Christ as the center of, their spiritual lives. And so I said, sure. And I said, instead of a Zoom, how about if I just come out there? I'm doing a book tour where, the year before I'd gone down to Arizona and Texas, and we actually did one for 3 months. That was
Hmm.
for my memoir. And it had done so well. I mean, even my publisher came back and said, "Paul, of the 1,500, authors we've helped push to bestseller status, is your book had unheard of results." And I said, "What does that mean?" I said, "Is that good?" They go, "Yeah." And they said it hit top 10 bestseller in 22 categories. And I went, wow. And they said, but that's not the good thing, is it was number 1 in 10, and it was also the number 1 book in 4 countries. And I
That's
went,
amazing.
oh, praise God. I mean, that was amazing. And so, the things that can happen and the opportunities to speak is that college actually asked me and my wife, because there's stories about the two of us and how we met and how, she taught me how to basically see with my spiritual eyes, where
Mm.
we actually addressed the entire student body in this college. And that was back in April of this past year. And then they asked us to come back in September and stay on campus for 4 days and do like 4 actual nightly sessions where we did like a spiritual emphasis week.
Mm.
And we actually shared our stories, with the entire student body. And this is a college of like 650 students, and with the faculty, it's a couple hundred. And so the speaking opportunities that come with a best-selling book is, I have a friend that's actually, she published a best-selling book, and she's going to speak at Oxford here in this next week.
Oh
And
my
those
gosh.
doors open up, to speak at Oxford University. And you know that's amazing to me.
It
So
really is.
maybe you think, oh, I could never do something like that. I mean, I'd rather be dead than speak. But the thing is that when you find your voice and you discover and develop your voice to the point where there's actually a framework I teach, that's really how you not only can compose a paragraph or like a chapter in a book, but you actually can it's how they develop the TED Talks that
Mm.
do it. There's a very simple system that, to me, if I want to do like a 7 or a 10 or even a 20-40 minute talk, it doesn't matter. You can just stretch it out and make more stories or whatever, but it follows a very easy sequence that goes through. And so whether it's a chapter in a book or you're addressing the entire student body of a small college, it doesn't matter. And then you feel very comfortable about doing it because you're just basically doing what I did on the podcast, and where it's just, you don't even have to think about it. It just like comes out. And so that's the fun of it. So if you can imagine that, you're 90% of the way there. I guarantee
Mm.
it.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So any questions at this point?
No, everybody's just gushing over like how sweet with Sarah and I are like, oh, for your chapter title and the whole, she says totally reflects on the impact meeting his wife had. And absolutely, Sharice is lovely. No,
It
Lori
is
says she
amazing.
wants to be an inspirational, spiritually aligned speaker.
Oh, nice.
I like
Nice.
that. I love that.
And the thing is that you'll find that the collaboration opportunities that you have with other people just are so well developed and enhanced. And it's just kind of one of these things that you just don't know what doors are going to open. And the thing is that you don't have to have it all figured out. I mean, it can be in process as you go.
Mm.
And so, with, not just one book, but when you have like 5, 6, 7, 8 books, and like Jack Canfield, who has this chicken soup of the soul with all of these different, his
Mm.
real thing was encouraging other people to tell their stories and to come on to a book with him, which is an anthology book. I
Mm.
mean, and it's 60 million copies.
Mm.
And the way that we do these collaboration things is we don't make it so that it's so unaffordable. I mean, we price the books basically at cost so they get out there. I
Mhm.
mean, when you have like a very affordable ebook and basically do the paper book, at virtually almost at cost, is then it just blows out there. And so, if you're like Jack Canfield's, or not Jack Can, yeah, what's his name? Um, if you have 3,000 books in your garage and you
Oh yeah.
spent like $7 a piece, you have $20,000, tied up in books. What would 20,000 business cards that are in the right hands of your like dialed in audience be?
Mm.
And I can tell you that just last month alone, is the book royalties were on 3 figures as far as what I had. But the actual income that I derived was 5 figures.
Mm.
So when you look at that, you know, where's the money in all this? Where's all the success? And it's really your connections that you have. Because if you think you're going to be a millionaire by writing a book, and particularly about your life story, and you're going to sell millions and millions of books, I've got another thing coming for you,
Mm.
because it's really the connections that you develop out of it. And you think like, what can I, share, or what can I develop? And that's where we work with people, in the Publish, Speak, and Prosper system. And that's how Sue does her Entrepreneurs Gone Wild. And I just love the fact that, we've been able to like merge our efforts together with that. So
Mhm.
does everybody kind of think that they can kind of see themselves as a best-selling author? And you see yourself on book tours and maybe meeting together in like East Tennessee in the Smoky Mountains, going to a Barnes and Noble, together, or, maybe, I actually did a small, like little coffee shop bookstore. And it was so cool because I had all of my family, and, some of them hadn't even got my memoir book. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to give it to you. And I don't like giving it as a Christmas gift or something like that. I'm thinking if they're going to buy it, they're going to buy it. So, it's kind of one of those things. So I'm just wondering, is there any other ahas or takeaways before we go into the next part of our little mini masterclass that we're doing?
Well, Sarah says, I really enjoyed Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul growing up. Yeah, those are really good. And Lori says, definitely, she can see herself doing this.
Oh, that's awesome. And that's so much of it, is having the confidence to do it. And so, the one thing I can tell you is that the greatest thing I struggled with is just knowing if my content was any good.
Mm.
And there is this thing that I'll tell you, this is the greatest hurdle you're going to overcome. And if anybody has said this in the chat already, this is the answer to that question I asked back, maybe a half an hour ago, is the number one thing that you have to overcome is procrastination, because you're not sure of what to do or what to write. That is the number one thing, because if you're stuck, and I'll tell you, I was stuck. I had no idea of what I was doing, how to do it. And I think that struggle produced for me to really dig deep to figure out, how to do this thing. And, when you struggle with something like that, it's just when you know what's good and what people want, then that can make a real difference. And Amazon looks for AI generated content, and they'll actually ban it. And the problem with Amazon is it's gone from 1 million authors a year to 2.5 million authors a year. And most of it's from this AI. And I'll tell you, I did an experiment where I took one of my submissions of Author's Playbook, and I wanted to do Course Creators Playbook. So I just put it in AI and I said, with a few prompts, I said, I want to take this and make it from Author's Playbook over to Course Creators Playbook. And it came out with the most generic, generalized thing that was just like blah. And, that's what I call AI generated content. Now, there's a thing that you can do called AI enhanced content, to where you can actually go through, and I actually did it with Sue's, press release that she did. And I went in I changed almost every paragraph, didn't I?
Mhm.
Just by using software that looks and optimizes it. And it also looks at the way if it's actually been plagiarized, if it's been used anywhere else, and it does it in a unique way.
Mm.
So that's been kind of a game changer. There's like 3 to 4 different types of software that I use. And so if that's something that you're interested in, I just want you to put like in the chat, just say, Paul's AI, or just say AI course, and then we'll make a note of it. And it's something that we're actually going to offer here in the future. So One of the things when you look at one of the hurdles to come up with is that people are spending anywhere from 25, $30,000 to have a book published for them.
Mm.
And when you have a ghost written book where they actually interview you and do the book, and when I actually had mine done back in 2016, is I signed up for it. It was actually 15,000. And if I had actually had them write it, it would have been 25,000 back
Mm.
then. And so with this whole thing that we do, with the collaboration, with the anthology, is that when you can break it up and split those costs into a minimum to where, it's not so unaffordable. And the thing is that the collaboration, there's actually power in it, because the thing is. So let me ask you this. Is there anybody that really can bake a good cake? I just want to know, is there anybody that actually wants to come? Okay. And is there anybody that wants to come on camera and actually talk about baking a good cake? So if you do, raise your hand. And if not, we'll just interview Sue here, okay?
All right, let's
All
do
right.
it.
All right. So Sue, what type of cake can you bake?
Oh, I make a really good chocolate cake.
Okay, chocolate cake. And this chocolate cake, describe it.
Oh man, it's like brownie goodness, like kind of chewy a little bit like a brownie, but also cakey like a cake. And it's moist and it's just chocolatey.
Yeah, I imagine it tastes really good, melt in your mouth.
Yeah.
And I imagine that would go really good with a cup of coffee right now, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah. Or big glass of milk. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And so there's like a certain process that you have to be able to bake a chocolate cake like that. And what do you name that cake?
Let's see, Sue's perfect fudgy cake.
Okay. So with that particular process is that if you miss one of the steps, and like you have a certain time frame that you have to bake it in a certain temperature that you have. So if you miss one of the steps, or if one of the steps is not right, what's going to happen
Oh,
is you're going
it's a
to have failure,
disaster.
right?
It's disaster.
Right.
Throw it out, it's
It's going to
awful.
have a sunken cake. It's going to be tough. It's going to be doughy. It's going to, you know, have egg batter in it. Who knows? But the thing is that once you have that dialed in, and it's like in my former marriage, is my ex, she had the recipe for Mrs. Fields chocolate chip cookies,
Mhm.
and she had guaranteed she would not share it with anybody. But I'll tell you, she could bake the heck out of those things. And I'll tell you, I think I gained 15 pounds in a matter of 2 years with those things. I had Mrs. Field chocolate chip cookies all the time. Now, let me ask you this. If you were able to share your own recipe, Sue, of Sue's perfect, what was it, chocolate fudgy cake, right? Oh, I think she froze there a little bit.
Sorry, I froze.
But that's the thing is that if you had like the perfect recipe and you wrote a book on that, and this book not only described how to make this cake, but how it actually having the perfect recipe works in like a marriage.
Mm.
Because I'll tell you, if you're talking about relationships, if you're talking about wealth, if you're talking about health, those are like the three big categories that people love information on. Is how can I get along better with my spouse, or how can I find a great mate for the rest of my life, or and so can you imagine making $10,000 a month from that?
That'd be amazing. Just doing the thing that you're like talking about the thing you already know and love. Like
Right.
that's kind of the
Right.
dream.
And so, how do you do that? You sell 10,000 copies in a month, maybe. But what if you got on to like Oprah, or you got on to, somebody's, one of the cake, the cooking shows, that, you're actually featured on that because you have a best-selling book about, the perfect recipe for not only, you know, the chocolate cake, but, you know, to have the chocolate sauce of life, or whatever. I don't know. But the thing is that you may be thinking, oh, that's great, but I don't have the time to write a book, or, I can't afford it. And, but you don't even know how much it is yet. So, and we're actually not going to, the thing is we're going to make this really easy today. And next week, we're going to reveal about all the details of this. And we have some information we can give you for those that are interested. And so the thing is that you don't have to worry about, the fact is that, you know, are people going to like this stuff, because it's proven they will. And, the only thing that stops you is really the own internal nose that you have. And for whatever reason, that if you can visualize all the things that we talked about as far as becoming a best-selling author, and to also to be able to know what's on the other side, then sometimes it's not that hard to take action. And the thing is that if I've come from a point where I had $50 to my name, to where now, I've invested, I don't know, probably six figures in all the systems that I've learned and to developed. And the things that I love sharing this with people, because I don't want you to struggle for 7 years to write your memoir. And I don't want you to, you know, publish a book and then only sell 300 copies of it. There's no reason for that. There
Mm.
is a much easier way to do it. So I just wonder if there's any other questions in the chat, or if there's any ahas or takeaways that people have before we go into the overarching system that we have.
So Sarah was asking about the AI. She said, does AI just act as an editor? In that case, she's interested in the AI course.
It can, and see, you can speak about this, because I
Mhm.
think you've tapped into some of its aspects, and that'd be a fun course to teach together.
That would be, that would be. But yeah, you can use it as much or as little. AI assisted, like ideating, definitely checking. You can even get a first draft. It depends on what you want to do with it. But, and there's, you probably have heard this, but AI is only as good as the prompts you put in. So there's some
Mhm.
training of the AI to get it to do what you want it to do.
It's true, and it learns you. So it's
Mm,
like I asked it to write my bio, and to think about all the things that we've worked on, up till now, and to write a bio for, an introduction for, some kind of a speech I was going to do. And I was amazed at what came out. But the one thing I'll encourage you not to do with AI is, I actually got this little like $20 AI program on my phone, and I was using it all the time. I mean, I would use it like, give me 15 synonyms for this word, or give me, I was like doing it all the time. And it was unlimited for, it was like $30 a year or something. But the only problem is I have an iPhone phone and I have a PC computer, so
mhm.
they don't link up. So I was actually having to like copy and paste and email all this stuff back and forth, and don't do it that way. And I just find that using Chat GPT, and I don't even pay for this, and it does so much work. But if I'm in like a really big project and I'm like compiling chapters, and
Mm.
I'm doing research from past, chapters I've done, and comparing them and looking at Alex Hormozzi's system versus my own. And, I'll go through like maybe, I don't know, 10,000 words, in a session. It'll say, you cannot use this anymore until 1:47 a.m. And I'm like, crap, it's due at midnight. So
Oops, that happens.
sometimes, the $20 a month might pay off. But,
Yeah.
sometimes I just like to say, it's the Scottish in me. I'm half Scot and half Irish, or actually, half Irish and Scot and half Swedish. So that's my identity. So where was I? I was talking about AI, yeah. And so don't do it with the phone. Use your desktop if you can. But the real thing, I think, understanding how AI works we understand how Google search works. And so if we put in a prompt for Google search and like we're trying to find something like look up the quote to see if this is used anywhere else, you'll get like 6 pages of 10 entries a page. So you have like 60 things to search through. And the thing is that's how search engines work. AI basically takes all the information that Google would come up with and then compiles it. And then it can adapt it to actually your voice. And, I'm not a big fan of this AI voice and AI video. I mean, I've tried it and it's not real. I mean, you can tell it's not real. And I actually see where I'm interacting with people online, through Messenger mainly, and they're willing to know if I'm real or not. And I'm like, yeah, I'm real. I mean, you want to call me on my cell phone? so, so but that's the cool thing about it is you can do some really cool things with it.
That's for sure. Lori was just saying
Yeah.
she pays for Chat GPT because she couldn't work with the limits. I get you. That's so frustrating. You get to the end and you're like, nope, you're done. No. So
Yeah. So I think part of the system that I've discovered with the publish, speak, and prosper is that there's such a power in the power of the voice. And when I worked in advertising sales, the best job I had, was before Yellow Pages. I just loved it, but there was no money in it, and that was radio. And I absolutely love that medium because I do like these live remotes, and I would be with a advertiser, a business owner, and a lot of my stories, in my book are about radio sales and how marketing works and the power of the voice. And the thing is there's no more persuasive medium than the voice. And I'll tell you, that's why podcasting is so powerful. But I'll tell you, when you actually discover and develop your own voice, uh, everything changes. I mean, Sue, you've seen it. I've seen it. I've seen it in so many of the people that we actually hang out with and we interact with. I mean, I've seen this with like thousands and thousands and thousands of people. So discovering your voice, that's the one thing. And on the other side of that is that when you haven't found your voice and you're struggling to come up with content, and it's like you almost like are searching for something else that you can find it's like you want to copy and you want to adapt it, but you're always looking outside of yourself. Where this is the cool thing about what Sue and her husband have developed in this retreat center, because I'll tell you, having spent 2 years at a monastery where it's so quiet, I mean, it was so quiet, it was deafening. And I actually got so bored that I actually started writing on my book, in the monastery. I mean, the head guy, the abbot of the monastery would go to like China for 2 weeks, or he'd go to Japan, or, and it was just him and I. We started a
okay.
monastery between the two of us. Now it has like 15 monks or something, it's great for them. But, I had time to write and to be quiet. And I was amazed at what came to me in the quietness. I love to write at night. After my wife goes to bed, and she does a lot of voiceover on her phone, so there's like noise a lot. And that's just how she operates because she can't see her phone. But I found that and especially in nature, I mean, we have a home right on the Mississippi River in Minnesota. And we look out the backyard and there's the Mississippi right there. And we have like 15 giant oak trees all around us. I pray that we don't get some of these windstorms that's like Florida and North Carolina and Tennessee have got. Oh, Lord have mercy. But the thing is that when you have like what I call two identities, one is where you have really found your and developed your voice, and where you're struggling to know what to do, what to say, what content to develop, is that to me that's the greatest thing to overcome. And we typically don't move when we're stuck. I mean, it's just, and that's the thing that I think gets people stuck more than anything else. And so I just want you to know, if you have that, how would things be different for you? Can you see, is there anybody else out there that has really seen a change where where they discovered and developed their voice? I'm just curious.
You can put it in the chat.
Okay. You remember the movie with the guy that had ended up Catch Me If You Can,
Mm.
and remember his name was Frank. How do you pronounce his last name?
Oh, I don't remember. I remember it was Frank, but I don't remember his last name.
I think it's Abagnale or something like that.
Hmm.
And it reminds me of how he decided that I think he was even like a college dropout or something. And he decided that and if you've seen the movie, you know the whole story, is that he thought that he saw these airline pilots and how they would come in with all these gorgeous looking stewardesses, and they'd be coming from the airport and they'd be at the Radisson, and they had like the taxis and the limos and this stretch, bring them in, and it looked like the lifestyle that he really wanted. So he went and got an actual uniform of an airline pilot, got the hat and the whole thing, and he just stepped into that identity. And the thing is it was kind of like an assumed identity, but the thing is it became like his newfound identity. And he didn't look at himself as, oh, I wish I could. He just did it. And, to be a have and have it instead of a have not is just a huge thing. And one of the things that I wrote about in, the author's playbook is that we fight what's called imposter syndrome, where, we want to be somebody that's valued in the marketplace, somebody that's really has something to say, but we have this hesitation like, oh, I just, what do I know? Or, I'm not as good. We're always comparing ourselves to somebody else. But the thing is that as you step into that, and as like Frank Abagnale, I mean, he ended up being a professor in, a university, and I forget what he was teaching, but he found that he just needed to be like 1 week ahead of him. So he'd read the chapter and then he'd teach it the next week. And the thing is you can do that as an entrepreneur, as a speaker, and also as a writer. And the thing is you don't have to know everything right now, is you can learn as you go. And I'll tell you one thing that I believe about God Almighty is that he's compassionate and caring enough that he will help you along the way. And the inspiration that comes by just his leading and guiding, and he cannot direct you though if you're not moving. I tell the story in my memoir where I talk about the story where I was teaching my kids how to ride a bicycle. And the thing is you cannot teach them how to ride the bike unless they're moving. Because if they're not pedaling and if they're not, like trying to get their balance and everything else, is that until they're going down, is I can't really help them to negotiate and keep them out of the ditches and keep them from hitting the fire hydrant. That's how I used to stop because I didn't know how to brake. Is I just run into the fire hydrant. So it's probably why I have crooked teeth now. So
That's hilarious.
so yeah, so I think it really comes down to one of the things that I see, and we've got some time here, is with the system that we have in place, and I'm excited to do this with you, Sue, because you know you really have a talent for the writing, and to me, it's a great combination to offer. Because one of the things that I found is that, and this is probably one of the biggest secrets I'm going to reveal right now, and that is that when my book launched and it hit number one, it did it the first day. My memoir, Death of a Yellow Page Salesman, is there's an actual stra- uh, launch strategy that I learned from the owner of Bestseller Publishing, and it's the whole system that you do for the week of the launch.
Mm.
In every one of the really successful publishing houses that push people to bestseller status, it's a marketing technique that just absolutely works every time. And so I talked about this on some of our past, videos that we've done, Sue, in the last, week or two,
Mhm.
is that when you catch the momentum and that you've had this created, authority in the marketplace, it's a situation where, um, we had a press release that was released the day of the launch, and the press release spoke about the fact that, the book, had hit number one. I mean, released the first day, it hit number one in three categories. And so I actually went on to LinkedIn, where I had about 5,500 followers at the time.
Mm.
And there's some things I can share with the people that want more, education of how I got that, but it's not that hard. But I actually went in and I posted that press release and invited people to download the book for 99 cents, that week, because it was on special. And I posted it, and I think it was like in six groups that were marketing.
Mhm.
And Sue, it hit 8 million people.
That's crazy. Amazing.
It was just so nuts. And so why did it go like top, 10 and 22 categories? Is because I hit that viral moment like you did with your MacGyver invented washing machine, where he, Zach, right?
Yeah, that my husband is Eric, but yeah, my son is Zach.
Oh, okay, Eric. So, and he's the MacGyver,
Yeah.
but he hooked it up to your water system that you get from the rainwater, and your alternative power, and just the way that you do things. And
Hmm.
what a story! The fact that you're getting back to your hillbilly roots. I think that's
Hmm.
what really caught people in the first few seconds, that made it just
Yeah.
go crazy. And the fact that, everybody's looking for stuff over there. I mean, today we were on YouTube searching for all the news from, East Tennessee and North Carolina, Western North Carolina, and God
Mm.
bless them. I mean, we're just, our hearts go out to everybody over there right now. It's just a real chaos going on.
Yeah,
It's just
it is.
unfortunate. So yeah, um, I think that, like, with what we're doing here is, I think some people probably have a question of, how can I get started in this? Or how can I investigate this further? Because it comes down to it, a thing is that, is this an easy system or is it a hard system? And I'll tell you, it's this easy. Is all you need to do is book a call with Sue and I, and we have information we can give you. And the thing is that once you decide whether you want to be a part of this or not, you have the information to make a good decision. And, you have, all the parties agree on it. The thing is this is an investment that will pay off handsomely in the long term, because all of the doors that are going to open up, and the authority and the credibility and the validation that you'll have after that. But the thing that, and I'm just wondering if anybody has any other questions before actually get into what we do.
You can put them in the chat.
Okay. So I have a token gift for all of those that book a call. Is this will be an entry into winning a $5,000 package
Mm.
that Sue and I have put together. And we're still finalizing what we're going to put in this $5,000 package. But the cool thing about this is it's a complete system of publishing, speaking, and prospering that involve being in a guaranteed best-selling book, where you are an author. And if you struggle with the fact that, you're not sure how to write it, you need help writing it, is we can help you with that. Is if you actually want to be a part of something that's like a retreat experience, where you can come and get away and be a part of maybe even a book launch. We could do a book launch together, but we are going to do a retreat together. And so with each person that books a call, that will be an entry into, what we're going to give away as far as, one of the chapters we're going to actually gift to somebody. And that's our giving back, because I know that Sue and I both have benefited from publishing,
Mhm.
and just the things that we've done with podcasting and the things that we've learned, because we've interacted together for what, maybe about a year now. Has it been that
I think
long?
so. Yeah, I think so. That
Okay.
sounds about right.
So, and then next week we're going to do a follow up, because we kind of have to finalize everything here the next, week and a half or so, because the deadline is coming up. And so we only have a limited number of spaces available. And so it's first come, first serve, but we also have to make sure that we're in alignment as far as, what we're talking about. And so the whole subject is about, entrepreneurs gone wild. And the thing about that that's going to be fun, and maybe you could speak about this a little bit, Sue, as far as, living life on the wild side.
Yeah, it may not look like you're out homesteading and being crazy, but it could be anything really, as far as what this might be if your business went wild, if your life has gone wild. And part of what I would love to see too is like how you've gotten your great ideas outdoors, what that means, your creative process.
Mhm. So I'm going to put in the chat for here, and this is the actual website that you can go to, if I can spell it right.
Am I frozen? Did I
It's a
freeze through that whole thing?
No, you didn't
Okay,
freeze at
good.
all. So the information, and you can actually, it prompts us that you want to actually book a call with us. And the thing is that we have like a couple different options there. And if you have questions, just mark the thing that you want, like just an informational call. But one of the things that Sue is really good at is actually interviewing people and then coming out with some content that you can actually post. And it's really powerful when you have that article. I mean, the one that you did just yesterday
Mhm.
of, this abandoned church. I don't know where you found that picture, but it's so cool. But the thing is that to have like the the writing and then the publishing, and it was so quick. It was just like almost instantaneous. Is
Mhm.
that such a good thing? But also the entire package with the whole, writing and everything else, is we're actually going to follow up next week with that, and kind of dial in that whole process for people that are interested in. And we'll see, but the thing is that we want to be able to help people with the questions that you have and adapt this course about, what it's going to be about. So, because I definitely can tell you that it's not fun to do this process alone, and there's nothing worse. And if you've actually struggled with writing, if you've had writer's block, and maybe you've gone through a time where you just wanted that connection with other people, because there's a lot of power in like a mastermind, or where you collaborate together, and things just naturally rise when you go through that. So haven't you experienced that as well, Sue?
Oh yeah, definitely. Anytime I've written books, if it's just it's a slog, like I
It
never
can
have
be.
thought about doing it with people, and it's like, why didn't I think of that? It's so great.
You're right. So the website that you can go to is authoritylaunch.com. And with that, it's just authoritylaunch.com. And there's some information there about the whole thing. Is we're just finalizing the cover. We're going to ask you for your input on which cover you like. And we kind of have it. We think we've actually got some interaction already for this. But the thing that I like is the fact that there's so many fun entrepreneurs in your group, Sue. And
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a cool thing. And then we're actually going to do one for my group. So anybody that's in publish, speak, and prosper.com, then that's a great place to connect. Sue, you're a part of that.
Mhm.
And I got some other people that are really dialed into publishing that are part of that. We're actually working on a summit where here the first right at the first part of the year, we're going to do like a multiple day summit where we interview people and we actually are able to use their story in where there'll be thousands and thousands of people, whether you're an expert in publishing, speaking, or as a prosperous entrepreneur, is we want to share those things, those ideas, those secrets, those systems that are working for other people. Because the thing is this shouldn't have to be hard
Mhm.
is because if you figured out a process, if you figured out a way to be able to make this cake, to where it's like perfect every time, and to where you don't have to like go back to the drawing board and research Betty Crocker cake, cookbooks, then that's the whole thing.
Mm.
So just wondering if there's any questions in the chat at this point, or if anybody thinks that.
Yeah, people are definitely interested in hearing more about it. There's some financial concerns. Sarah was saying, I've learned I should probably build a following on a podcast. Also a fantastic idea. Lori says, so true. Masterminds are incredible, and being in a community with others on the path is very important. Sarah says, I've done public speaking, but never been paid for it. That'd be nice.
Well, that's actually a good to exercise that muscle. And because I'll tell you, once you do, things really improve for you because you've overcome that initial fear to get up and share with people.
Oh, yeah.
So with what we have in place, and the fact is that this is the initial launch, and we kind of called it a party, is so we want to be able to celebrate. And I just wondering who was the closest guess on the question I had as far as the biggest obstacle.
Let me scroll
You have
way
somebody?
back up there. Yeah, we do. I have to just scroll way up. Let's see.
And because the thing is that if you're really struggling with content and you just don't know if what you have is any good, and you have that imposter syndrome, but the
Mhm.
thing is that you just are stuck to the point where you can't move forward. That is the biggest obstacle to
Mhm.
overcome.
It is.
And there's a reason we procrastinate, and it's just simply because we're not sure, we're not confident in taking that next step because it's the unknown. But I'll tell you, when you've done this step a time or two, and I'll tell you now that I've done working on the seventh and eighth book, it's just so much fun because once you've figured out something, then it's not that hard, and it's
Mhm.
actually fun. So
Yeah,
that's the cool thing about it.
that sure is. So I have a problem on the comments because it won't let me go back up that far.
Oh, it won't.
I think it was Sarah who said marketing. Um, I think, how about we give the little present to everybody who's still here?
Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll just re-ask the question and get it up in the chat. So I actually gave you the answer though.
Yeah, you did.
So, and I love the fact that, you learn so much from each other. And the one thing I've seen is like I've learned a lot from you, Sue, but there's so many other people that I interact with that I learn from. Is I figure every interaction is you're learning something from
Mm,
somebody. And I saw this video just the other day, and I actually shared it with somebody that was struggling with they're in a new job where they're so critical. Everything, they're being criticized about doing this and about doing
mm,
that, and this wasn't good enough. And I saw this video, and I've actually posted it in Public Speak and Prosper. But every time there was like a negative reaction, is this guy would say, "Good." Like we had this happen, which was a tough thing, and he goes, good. And one of his employees said, I don't want to come to you because I know the thing you're going to say is good. And the thing is that everything that we have to struggle with, or we have to work through, is that if you really think about that, is you've learned from that. You'll learn more from that than if you just have life on easy street. If everything is hunky dory, just made in the shade, just no stress, no problem, you don't have anything to write about. You really don't. I mean, life is good. I mean, that's great. Awesome. But I'll tell you, those of us that have struggled in life, those that have a thing or two that we've learned, then that's good. That's really good because people love that. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what they're dying to hear. So if you're thinking about actually taking this idea you have for a book and you don't do anything with it, the most expensive real estate of the tapped in ideas is actually in the graveyard of all those people that didn't do something with their idea. And so, you can look at it from the standpoint of kind of between the turtle and the giraffe, right? I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if you know this, but the turtle is, they're very steady and sure. It's kind of a safe environment. If thing gets too overwhelming, you can actually pull in your shell and, but you're always safe. And the thing is that your perspective on everything is basically ground level.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the difference between the giraffe can see, like way up in the air, like, 15, 20 feet in the air, and they have this long neck and everything. But there's times where people will say, you know, that's a really big idea. Are you sure you want to do that? And the thing is that if you have a giraffe perspective and a vision, but people are saying, from their turtle view, that you need to see things down at your level. Do you know that if a giraffe bends down and actually eats the grass off off of the ground, they will actually collapse and then could die. They actually
Oh,
suffocate by bending over that far. So they
wow.
actually eat from the leaves of the trees. And so they're actually, because they can't do that. And I don't know if you've ever heard that, but a lot of times our perspective is everything. I wrote a chapter about this in my memoir, and I think it's one of the best chapters in the book. And it's because, the way that you see things and the way that your perspective and why you derive at certain things, it's what makes you you. And we have that individuality, that creativity, that inspiration that we have of ourselves. And the thing is that when you tap into that and you're able to share it, it's just an amazing, amazing thing.
Mm.
So I just applaud for all the people that are still here on the broadcast.
Yeah,
And I just want to say that if we have a winner in the chat, I'd like to write it down. And
we do.
then
So
we would just ask that you go ahead and make an application with the authoritylaunch.com. And that's authoritylaunch.com. And there's actually an option where you can book a call for free. And, there's actually, I think, two other options where if you want like an actual, a working like interview where we actually dive in and talk about some things. And for those that actually want to reserve a space, in that we'll give you early reservation. We haven't actually came out with all of the information, but you can actually put a deposit down for that, and it's a reasonable price. It's what I paid for, originally when I got into the whole thing. So, do we
that's
have
awesome.
a winner?
So we have a few. So all right, we've got. Thank you for putting your answers back in. So now I can see them. So Lori Miller said, "I said being consistent and devoted to action." Sarah Merritt said, "I believe I said confidence and understanding your why."
Okay. So, who would you say is the winner, Sue? I'm going to put you on the
Hmm.
spot.
I'm going to say Lori's is closest. Being
Okay.
consistent and devoted to action. That's probably the closest.
So, Lori, we just want to make sure that you go ahead and make application to book a call. And then we'd like to get your address. And then you'll need to go on paulsbestsellers.com and pick out a book and I'll order it for you. So we'll do that. Congratulations.
Yeah,
That's exciting.
that is. That really is.
All right. So we just have a few more minutes and we'll wrap things up for the 2 hours now. It's been pretty
Woo.
amazing. And I just want to applaud you for spending a Saturday afternoon here. And we'll probably put this on replay, won't we,
Yeah,
Sue?
definitely. Definitely. It'll be right
Okay.
here live in the group.
Yeah. And the one thing I love about Sue is that she's willing to do content creation in the back of a shed. And, I just, you know, I think that's great. I've got this really nice like desk with the whole thing. And, it's kind of like my platinum place that I create content. And I just thought if Sue can do it in the back of her shed, I can do it at my kitchen table, with the laundry machine and everything behind me. I mean, why not? So
Why not?
it's just fun to do that.
That's
So,
right. Do
um,
it messy. We just do it, It's better to just do it than to just wait until it's perfect.
right. And so, also, I'd like to invite any of you that are not a part of publishspeakandprosper.com, and I'll actually put that in the chat
Hmm.
too. So,
Yeah,
publish, speak, and prosper, prosper, prosper.com.
there we go. Got it.
And that will go right to the Facebook. And the thing is I ask for you to agree to a few terms, like you'll be supportive, you won't, you know, be critical of people, but encouraging, and you're actually interactive. And I ask for your email address so we can send you things. And for those that actually, you get in, this is actually to be a paid group in the future. So now you can save $97 because it's like a one-time lifetime fee, but now you can get in for free. So this is your time to get in. And Sue's a part of it. I
Mhm.
really value your input in the group, and it's just fun to be able to share things that I think are just so beneficial. And have people gotten some value of what we've shared today? I'm just curious. I
Yeah, I'd
can't
love
see
to
the
see that.
chat.
And I'll let you know as that comes in. There is a lag, of course, but Lori says she's just
Okay,
requested to join the Publish, Speak, and Prosper group. Welcome in, Lori.
nice.
That's great.
That's awesome. And we
Yeah,
have several other projects that we're working on too.
so
And
cool.
having Sue as a nice writer that you have the gift of correction and punctuation and all that. That's just such a
Right.
powerful thing. I can't tell you the number of people I hired on Fiverr trying to find somebody that was good.
Right.
And, because I was doing transcriptions and I
Hmm.
didn't have the software at that time to be able to create a transcription. So I was
Mm.
actually hiring people to listen to it. And they probably had software. They did it in a matter of minutes. And I'd, pay 30, $40 every time I did a,
Oh, yeah.
short 5-10 minute thing. And
Hmm.
so it's pretty crazy.
Definitely.
So
Cool.
what takeaways, what ahas do you have at this point? And of course, we're looking for interaction because, what are the things we're going to have runner ups and top finalists for prizes? And
That's
so,
great.
some of the things that we're going to give away as far as an AI course of how to really create compelling content with AI. And I like AI enhanced, not AI created. And there's like 5 different pieces of software that I use that have been game changers.
Mm.
And this is a $97 value of a course that I just teach. It doesn't take long. It's like an hour and a half. And but the thing is that those things that I share are just, I mean, I was sharing some of the stuff with you, Sue, that's
Hmm.
just so good. And even Google Docs. I mean, I found some things that really work. If you use that, there's an AI feature with that a lot of people don't know about.
Hmm.
That's so cool.
That is. That is so
So
cool.
yeah. So anything else that you'd like to cover, or
Well,
where
Tiffany
we're
says
at?
this has been an encouraging conversation. Sarah's going to be
Encouraging
joining
is
your,
good.
yeah, Sarah's going to be joining Publish, Speak, and Prosper after the live, so she doesn't miss anything. Lori says it's been encouraging and inspiring.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great. So, back to the visualization thing is that I want you to experience something I experienced last month
Mm.
where I had an entire auditorium full of people and it was standing room only. And I only shared for 7 minutes, but it was an amazing thing that I was sharing just simply really a short little process of 4 steps that's called Dare to Act. And this Dare to Act is something that I felt like was really important because this was at the college where we had the entire football team there, and they have had two losing seasons. And their season had just started where they had a couple games, here in September, and they already were 0 and 2. And so here was a room full of college football players. It was at a small college in Kansas, Sterling College. And I spoke to that entire room, and it was just 7 minutes long, but it was this message. And I'll do it in like a minute or two instead of 7 minutes. But the thing is that when we dare to act, we just simply take 4 steps, and that's DARE. One is we make the decision, we decide. And because a lot of times we don't take action because we haven't made the decision. So, but when you decide and then take action, so decide and act, I'll tell you, things begin to change and you begin to get into momentum, and doors start to open for you. And you see that, sometimes, the greatest thing that prevents us from succeeding is procrastination, is that voice in us that always stops us, or the voice that says that you can't do this, or the voice that says, and I actually shared the biblical account of Samson, or of David and Goliath, and how David made a decision that as a shepherd, he was going to go out and fight this giant Philistine that I think was like 9 or 10 feet tall. I mean, it was one of those Nephilium or whatever. And but the thing is he made a decision and then he took action by picking up the stones on the ground that he's going to use in a slingshot. But he also took action with the R, and where he received, you know, his inspiration, that he had to do it with his own strength. I mean, his own, how he relied on God in the past and how he had defeated a bear and a lion, with his force of strength. And because they offered him the whole armor and everything, and it was just so big, he was like encumbered. There's no way he could fight with that. So, but when he received, he actually took action with that revelation that the rocks are going to defeat this man simply because of the power and what he's seen done before. So, the decision, the action, and then, to believe to receive. That's the carry through. Sometimes we have to have a sustained action to the point where we receive what our vision is or what we want to really do. And so, and then the E is simply to enjoy it once you have it and to celebrate it. That's what I love going on these book tours, because they're actually a celebration of hitting another best-selling status and going out and speaking to people. And I'll tell you, people want you to speak when you have that bestseller status. I mean, we were in a RV park, and my memoir had just gone, number one, and they asked us to speak for an hour to the entire, there's like 310 spaces in this RV park in Arizona, and they had this really nice, auditorium and everything. And then my wife actually played some songs. She plays keyboards and sings. And then I shared about, how we met and our story that relates to the book. and then we've actually been sharing, in a lot of different places. And it's been so much fun to do together because it's something that 5 years ago, when I was in that abandoned church all alone, and maybe you've been in a place like this before, I can identify with you have, is I had some dreams. And I had dreams of being able to travel in an RV and to be able to speak and have a book that I've written. And the thing is that as a retired yellow page sales trainer, I could not dream of a better life. And to be able to help people like all of you, it's just been I'm just so thankful to, my Heavenly Father for all of this. And so I want to thank you for being a part of this. We've still got 5 more minutes before the top of the hour. So, Sue, I'll give you a little moment to say some things if you'd like.
Yeah, well, actually, Lori had a couple questions that came in. She says on authoritylaunch.com, do we just click enroll, fill it out, and then we'll receive an email? Is that how that works?
Yeah, it'll actually prompt us to reach out to you. We'll probably send you a Calendly link and schedule a call.
Great.
And it's one of those things you kind of decide where you're at in the process. And
Mhm.
the thing is that if you want to wait before you make a deposit, that's fine.
Mhm.
I don't think it's going to sell out in a week. I could be
Right.
surprised. But the thing is that next weekend, we'll figure out a time we can do this and we'll announce it and actually do a kind of an actual launch of it. And it'll be fun because, it's all in process now. We are in momentum.
That's great.
Oh, I think she froze again. So it's very seldom that I have good broadband, but I cleared out the cookies on my cache. So I'm instead of having cakes, I had cookies. So oh, there you are again.
There we
Okay.
go. Sorry about that. Lori also asked if you have a list of your acronyms. She says she creates them too.
I use them a lot. I don't really keep track of them. A lot of them are in my chapters
Mm.
because I found that when I do a talk or I do a sharing, is I like to break down, it's like a really simple thing is that you tell people what what you want to share with them. And usually it's in the form of a universal question where you say, how would you like to be able to know how to overcome your greatest enemy in just 4 simple steps?
Mhm.
And how would you like to know this so that you can actually not only just overcome your greatest enemy, but it can allow you to reach your greatest dreams? And then you just share your story of, with Sue, your story. Why don't you share your story a little bit? We've got a few minutes.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's crazy that I'm sitting here in a barn, really. For the first 17 years of building my first business, I joke that I was trapped indoors, but I did it. Like I just didn't go
Mhm.
outside. I was busy working, had my head down, and thought outside is for rich people, and I'm not. And it's funny because like 3 years ago, I read a book called Three Simple Steps by a guy named Trevor Blake, and he's built all these 9-figure businesses and spends like 4 hours a day working. And he says 3 of those hours he's out walking his dogs or sitting under a tree. And I thought, I don't know about that, but I tried it for about a month and the habit stuck. And then I started getting these great ideas. And then one time I was on a car drive, a long road trip after that. I was driving and it was almost like it wasn't an audible voice, but I definitely got this impression going, hey, you should totally build a retreat center for entrepreneurs in the Smokies. And my kids lived up this way. So like that was an interesting conversation when I got home, but we're here. So you can guess how that went. Hubby was like, all right, I'm up for it. Let's do it. And next thing you know, we're building a retreat center for entrepreneurs and homesteading and living in a barn. Like, go figure.
And so those steps that the 3 or 4 steps,
Oh,
um,
yeah, I don't know. Let's see. I'm not sure. I'll have to think it through and write it
okay.
down and see how many steps are in there. But Yeah, I
But
had
the
the
thing
idea,
is
you know.
that's a great start into the story, and where you're sharing kind of your system of how you've gone from where you were to where you are now. And even though it's still in process, the thing is that you're following like a system or a step. It's kind of like if you had like a pond that you want to walk across it, and you're not sure how deep it is, or if it's like you just don't know what's on down underneath. But
Mhm.
if you have like these steps, or these I wouldn't say pedestals or whatever, that you can step on, it's already been placed. And maybe some are a little bit off, or a little bit longer, but the thing is that if you take this next step, you're going to get across this barrier.
Mhm.
And the thing is that with the story that you just told, that could actually be your submission for what your chapter is going to be in Entrepreneurs Gone Wild.
Mhm.
Because the
Definitely.
thing is that you're sharing something of what you desired, where you came from, your hell to the heaven. And it's just a cool thing.
It
And
is.
but the thing is that there's going to be stories about that you can share of the transformation that came out of it.
Mm.
And I just believe that we have a power within us to help people. And if your heart really is to give and to share with people, I just think that's an incredible quality.
Mm.
And so, if you're the people this isn't really geared for, or those that are just looking for money. I mean, if you're looking how to make seven figures in 30 days, this is not the group for you. This is not the venture. But I'll tell you, if you love like reaching out and helping people, and actually helping them do what you've done or what you're doing, is you don't always have to be like completely to your process. It's like
Mhm.
Frank Abagnale with Catch Me If You Can, is he was just enough ahead of him that he was able to help, at least those students in his class. He was
Mhm.
only a week ahead, but the thing is that he pulled it off pretty well. I mean, and he's a darn good actor.
Yeah, definitely. No, that's great. Oh, let's see. I think Lori had. Oh, wait. All right. I had seen for a moment which book was chosen. I think it was author playbook. So,
Oh, good. Okay.
yeah.
Yep. I just in the process of ordering some more of that. I ran out. So, and that's one of my
Awesome.
favorite books that I've written, or chapters that I've written so far. And it's where I really talk about this voice thing.
Mm.
And to me, that was kind of a cool thing, because I'd found so much help in doing podcasting and, of course, working in radio way back. But, once I started to find, and discover and develop my voice, is things really began to change. I
Mm.
noticed that my content creation with writing was so much better,
Mm.
and that when I go on and try to like generate like a chapter for a book, is I would just start telling a story, and I just did it right in a podcast. And I found that some of the software that I use, I mean, it's amazing, and I don't spend that much really. And but all that stuff I'll share in the AI course, and we'll be giving away some things as we go. So do make application if you can at authoritylaunch.com. And there's a free option. Just have a discovery call. There's also, if you want to actually book a session or use it for like the AI course or one of the things we're going to offer, that's $97. And then if you want to make actually a deposit for our whole system, that's $997 or $997. And then, but the total price that we're looking at is we're flexible on what we're going to do. And we want to know, first of all, which of these modules do you want, which you could have benefit from. And so the total package is, I spent close to $15,000 for all this. It's not going to be anything close to that. But I'll tell you, would it make sense to you to spend a third of that to be able to have a system in place that would save you all the time and the money and the effort? And the thing is that it was a guaranteed system that would work, as far as becoming a best-selling author. And the thing is that when you launch a book, you have to know what you're doing. And if you just put it out there and hope that people will pick it up or buy it, and you share it with your friends, your family, or your church, then it's like buying a lotto ticket. And the thing is that you can just invest a little bit of money. And the thing is that it'll give you the springboard to do something that's just truly, truly amazing.
Mm, that's for sure. Awesome.
All right. Well, we'll let you know as far as the next session, and I'm not sure what your schedule is, Sue, but
Yeah, we'll have to
whether
combine our calendars and see.
yeah, whether it's Friday or Saturday, that's fine. Let's see, next Saturday is the 19th. So, but we can see, if Friday's better, we'll see.
Sounds good. This
All
has been
right. So
awesome,
if you have
Paul.
any questions or anything else, let us know. You can ask Sue, you can ask me. We're here for you. All right. Did we lose you, Sue? I think we did. It's the satellite.
It is. I'm grateful for it, but oh my goodness, it's frustrating sometimes.
It's good to have another host on there, I'll tell you.
That's for sure. This has been great. Thank you so much, Paul. And thank you so much, everybody, for coming and spending part of your Saturday with us and learning about this. And this is
Mhm.
it's an exciting thing.
And thanks for your interaction and all of your support. And those that you invite people and bring them, just let us know, because we're actually going to have like an award for enthusiasm, and kind of like the cheerleader award, or I don't know what to call it. But also we want to kind of see, with the people that actually get involved, is we're going to have like a choice that will be like the people's choice, and where we could actually, those people that are in the system can decide, who we're going to gift it to together. So
Nice.
it'll be like maybe the top finalist. And so that's just one of the things. And the things that we're trying to do is to help you to be able to grow in this system in a way that makes sense, and it doesn't take a lot of time. I'll tell you, the thing that I saw is in a matter of just like 3-4 months, is you can have like a game changing system that
Mm,
I know for myself, is that, for what happened, it was it's been pretty darn amazing. So
awesome. Fantastic. Paul, Lori says that she'd actually written a book choice, but then she changed her mind. So she wants The Habits of Writing.
the habits of writing. I'm not sure which one that is.
Oh, okay.
I think is that the author code? I think that might be author code.
I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
it is. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. The
great.
habits of writing is actually the subtitle, I think.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'll
That's
look at
great.
it.
That's great.
All
Fantastic.
right,
Well, awesome. Thank you all, and hope you have a fantastic rest of your weekend.
all right. Bye, all. Great seeing you. See you next week.
Okay, end video. There we go. All right. Great job, Paul.
All right. The actual notes really helped.
Oh, yeah, that's
I don't know,
huge. That's awesome.
where are we at with
Oops.
that.
Yeah, that's really, really cool. Thank you for letting me see that and see how I can, help with it, not moderating, but just kind of co-hosting a little bit. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Super cool.
Geek
Awesome.
recipe. And I'll
Yeah.
tell you, there's so much more to it.
Oh, I
And
bet.
this is just like a Benny.
Hmm.
Um, but they do a whole thing with like, you know, like next week, as far as the whole like overcoming objections.
Yeah,
And you basically handle all the objections before they even come up.
that's great.
And the
That's
thing
good.
is that we kind of put it out there ahead of time.
Mhm,
And what this truly does, Sue, it's kind of like doing an ask campaign,
mhm,
and where I think it would be really good to figure out, and this is one of the things that I was coming up with. We could do like a voice course,
mhm,
like we have the find your voice thing, but you know, there's so much that your interview and the story. I think that could be something that we'll put a price on that.
mhm,
Um, we could do like a learn and do workshop, which
mhm.
is like um, a do it yourself. Um,
Yeah, with like
you
prompts
know,
and then, yeah, that's
right.
great. Mhm,
It- and if they want, a chapter ghost written, for them, they can do that.
mhm.
Um, with that. But with the anthology and the retreat and all of that, it's just a pretty great offer. I think $5,000 is a pretty realistic figure.
Yeah, I think that seems very reasonable. There was only one reply to that in the chat. It was Lori, and she put kind of the shocked face, and that was it. So
What's her
Sarah
last
had,
name?
let's see, Miller was it? Let me check it.
Lori Miller.
Yeah, Lori Miller. And then Sarah Merritt had said, yeah, really enjoyed it, all this kind of stuff. But she said that, financially is not a thing for her right now. But we
Mm-hmm.
had Jana for a little bit. We had a couple other people who popped in and out. And we had
Mm-hmm.
Tiffany Vernier. So, um,
Oh yeah, she was at the last one.
mhm. Yeah, she goes
So
to almost everything. So,
is she?
yeah, yeah,
That's cool.
yeah.
That's cool. And the thing is that it's good interaction for a group.
Oh, yeah.
You
No,
know,
that's always good.
um, I'm really kind of seeing that to be able to do this for a lot of different groups,
Mhm.
it could be really, really good.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I was thinking too, so even if like one person from Entrepreneurs Gone Wild wants to do it and then that's it, well, there's other anthologies we can weave that into, transfer them to
Hmm.
that, um, and see.
Hmm.
I think that's really cool. Very cool. Well, I
Well, I
need to
think,
get,
well,
yeah, I need to get
sure.
rolling, but
Okay.
this has
Sorry
been
for going over.
fantastic. No, you're fine, but this has been fantastic. And so say hello to Charisse and we'll be in
Will
touch.
do. Have a good
Take
rest of the
care.
weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.